Yes, first of all, I would like to share a word of prayer. We thank God for
Good evening, Desmond.
giving us this day to come and
Hello,
learn about
Desmond.
mental health. So I'll plead for everyone to close their eyes while we begin. Thank you, Lord Jesus. We thank you again for such a wonderful day. We pray committing our discussion into your hands. We bless you, we give you praise. Take control over everything. Okay. Once again, good evening, everyone. Yes, I would like to welcome our main speaker for today, Miss Loizza Aquino, a member of YMCA Canada and an advocate for mental health. She is currently the founder of a mental health organization called Peace of Mind, and she's about to complete her bachelor's degree in psychology. Hello, Miss Loizza. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? How are y'all doing?
We are all doing good. We are all doing good. Okay, thank you once again. We are here today to discuss about mental health, um, how we have been Africans and everyone has been affected by the COVID-19 situation in the currency right now. Before that, I also had the um, urgency or seriousness to organize this meeting because I personally I lost a friend through mental health depression, and it has also sort of been a responsibility that I think I have to take it up to myself to make sure that all my friends and any other person wouldn't go through the same way that he went. Rest in peace to my friend Michael. Okay, to start with, I would like us to talk about what mental health is and um, what again is mental illness. Mm. So mental health basically is a state of psychological well-being that has to do with being active, being fine, no depression, and all of that. Some definitions that I've been getting from the books says that is the level of psychological well-being or absence of mental illness, which may include individuals' ability to enjoy life and to create a balance between life activities and efforts to achieve psychological resilience. Once again, I felt that COVID-19 has caused a lot of pain, a lot of damage to individuals when it comes to them thinking straight, getting the ability to be happy because of the isolation. Mhm. So right now, we want to. We are here because we want you to tell us more about mental health and if there is any other question we can throw to you. But before that, I would like to introduce Mr. Nana Odenehun, who is the president of the Greater Accra Regional YMCA, and he is the Aheneba Nana of Asaman Kesi, and Ambassador Sebejelu, who is an YMCA change agent and then a co-founder of Hope Performance Tennis. Mm. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Nana Odenehun. Okay, once again, Loizza, you have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? Am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome. Cool. So, like Desmond said, my name is Loizza Aquino. I am a youth mental health advocate, and I got involved with the YMCA through last year's large event in London, England, where mental health for one of the days. So my story of mental health begins a long time ago when I was 15 years old. I'm currently 20. When I was 15 years old, I lost one of my best friends to suicide. And I'm in a small city in Canada called Winnipeg. So in our city, we had about 4 high school student suicides that happened within the time span of 1 month. So in 4 weeks, we lost 4 students to suicide, and one of them were my best friends. So for me, it was something that I saw as a problem and something that was not being talked about enough. And with mental health, there's this stigma, meaning that it's taboo and that people don't want to talk about mental health because it is something that is a sensitive topic, or it's something that people are not educated about, or people just do not believe in mental health as a whole. So me as a Filipino who was born in the Philippines and have Filipino immigrant parents, mental health was not something that was talked about in our household for a very long time. And a lot of people who I grew up around, they had this family where they were able to talk about mental health and they were able to kind of share their experiences. But it wasn't the case in my end. And it became something that I saw was a problem, that it wasn't being discussed within schools and it wasn't being discussed at all in my life. So I decided that I wanted to create my own mental health organization where we have other young people across Canada who get to share their stories surrounding mental health. So I guess a lot of the questions that I get is, what is mental health? Like, is it real? How do I know if it's real? And I think the misconception that we have a lot of the times is that just because you do not have a mental illness like depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder does not mean that you do not have mental health. Because just like we wouldn't say if you don't have a cold or you don't have a terminal illness like cancer, it doesn't mean that you do not have physical health. In that case, you still have physical health, you're just physically healthy. And in the same way, we do have mental health and we should strive to be mentally healthy as well. And for me, it became something that was in my life prevalent, but not by choice. I was forced to talk about mental health after losing one of my best friends to suicide. And I wish that I had taken that step sooner to actually talk about mental health on my own will and by my own choice. Um, and last year at YMCA 175, I had the opportunity to share my story in front of about 4,000 young people to talk about mental health. And one of the stories and one of the questions I got asked the most was, how do I talk about mental health? I either don't have parents that believe in mental health, I don't have a community that believes in mental health, or I've never been educated on mental health. And my one thing that I like saying is that I understand it's a touchy subject, but it does not mean that it should not be touched. So for a lot of people, it can be an uncomfortable conversation to talk about issues such as suicide and mental illness, but at the end of the day, it's a topic that needs to be discussed. Um, and for as long as I could remember growing up, it wasn't something that we talked about in school. It wasn't something we talked about at our YMCA. It wasn't something that we talked about within our households. But more and more we're seeing these issues, especially with COVID-19, where we're not being able to go and socialize. We don't get to kind of have that safe outlet where we get to meet other people, talk to other people, and use socialization as an outlet to kind of take a step back from our busy lives and take a step back from the anxiety that COVID-19 may be creating within us. Especially within Canada right now, a lot of people have lost their jobs due to COVID-19, and that anxiety of, where is my next meal going to come from? When am I going to see my loved ones next? It's a big question that everybody is asking, and it's something that we don't have the answers to because we don't know when this is going to end. So the most that we can do is equip ourselves with the mental health awareness and the knowledge that we can kind of use on our everyday lives and on a daily basis. And a lot of that starts with like being able to take a step back from what you're doing and thinking about things that will make you and contribute to your mental health in a positive way. A lot of people have been staying in bed because they don't have a job or they don't have school to go to. So I guess it's more of how can you continue and modify our everyday lives so that it works in a way to better our mental health and not to detriment it. So I think on our end, as young people, a lot of us have been stressed about future jobs, education wise, and where, like, financial wise, where are we going to get our income from? And it's been a lot of stress from a lot of people that I've talked to. I had a call with a YMCA group in Houston, and I've been taught in Houston, Texas, in the States. I've also had a call with a member of YMCA Columbia, and I understand that with their youth and the people they're working with, the issue is how are we engaging them still with YMCA in our programs, and how are we equipping them with conversation that they need to completely understand everything going on. So the current pandemic, the main issue right now is how are we still taking care of our mental health, and how are we talking about mental health in places where maybe we're not completely aware of mental health, or we don't believe in mental health, or there's a huge stigma surrounding mental health. Mental health has a stigma worldwide, but in some places it's definitely heavier than others. In the Philippines, I know it's a much heavier stigma. From my understanding from talking to Desmond as well, there is a large stigma where you are as well. So I guess the first part that I wanted to talk about was being able to deconstruct that stigma in our everyday lives. So I guess that begins with starting with yourself, having that open conversation and having those conversations with your loved ones, because I know what it's like to not have that conversation and to feel like it's too late to have it. So I would start off by checking with their loved ones, asking how they're really doing, seeing if they're struggling with anything, seeing if they need anything. I would also start by doing your own research. Look up and educate yourself about information surrounding mental health. Look at all the different resources that are available and see what are the ways that I can do, what are the things that I can do to contribute to eradicating the stigma surrounding mental health. So education for me is a very large part of mental health awareness and eradicating that stigma. But like I said at YMCA 175 is the most powerful part about mental health is that you just have to talk. Conversation is the most powerful tool that we all have access to. And it's something that we're able to do and practice in our everyday lives. We can talk about things that we're going through. We can talk about the importance of mental health. And we can talk about the needs that we have within our communities to have these conversations and have these awareness campaigns so that people are more aware that it's okay if you're struggling with your mental health. And mental health is not just struggling with your mental health is not just having a mental illness, but it's also, are you stressed out? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating well? Are you sleeping well? And it's all these aspects that all come together that affect your mental health. So for me, I guess like my main point that I want to get across in this presentation is I want to encourage everybody to talk. I want to encourage you to talk to people you love. I want to encourage you to have these difficult conversations, because the conversation can get a lot more difficult. And I've been there. I've had the even more difficult conversation when it comes to mental health. And I think that suicide is 100% preventable. And it might be so, I guess, drastic to say that someone we know could be thinking about suicide, but at the end of the day, we have no idea what anybody else is going through. And it's important that we talk about these things now instead of afterwards. I guess that was the main point of what I wanted to say. I don't know if Desmond, you have anything else you want me to touch on?
Right now, with all that you have said, I don't know if anybody has a question or contribution right now. Torben, I can see Torben was an exchange. Uh, he came here for an exchange program. Torben, hello. Would you have anything to say, Torben?
I just want to say hello to you all, and I'm happy to be here with you, even if I'm in Germany, far away from you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much, Torben. Okay, now mental health in Ghana. Well, I realized that most Ghana's population has over 75% youth, and we don't even know how to locate someone who has mental illness, because you obviously wouldn't see from how they are to you. Sometimes they might not even talk to you about it. So I wanted to ask, how would you be able to locate someone who has mental illness, Loizza?
So I guess that's not more of a question that I would be able to answer because I'm not too sure of the resources where you're located. But definitely, if there are even like a psychologist that you know in your community that is able to help the YMCA or team up with the YMCA, I think that would be a really good opportunity for the YMCA to get engaged with the conversation of mental health. So if you're able to even bring a psychologist into the community or the neighborhood and say, I think there might be some people who would benefit from your service, and I think there might be some people who may be struggling with mental illness. Is this something that you're able to come and help us with? I think that's the very first step, is educating your community. So before even diagnosing somebody with a mental illness, I think it's more important for everybody to understand what a mental illness is, or what it looks like to have a positive mental health and what it looks like to have mental health that might not be so healthy.
Okay, okay. We would like to open the floor for questions. If you have any question, you can, or contribution, you can join in right now by raising your hand, and then we'll unmute you so that you can have the floor. In the meantime, I would like to ask, how do you, Loizza, how do you deal with people who have mental illness? What are some of the programs that you engage them in order to be able to regain their psychological resilience?
I think I'm gonna, sorry, I think AJ has a question.
AJ, AJ.
I think he has a question. He had his hand up.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I just want to know what does mental health and depression have in common?
Can you repeat that?
Come again?
I want to know what does mental health and depression have in
Okay.
common?
So mental health is the state of your mental well-being, right? So like Desmond kind of said earlier, it's in the same sense that we have physical health, that's our mental health. So are we thinking, how are we thinking, how are we doing emotionally and mentally? Depression is something that can occur if you have a negative mental health. So depression fits into mental health, but they're not necessarily the same thing. So you have mental health, which everybody has, and then you have mental illness, which some people may have. And then one of those mental illnesses are depression. And so depression does fall into mental health, but they're not the same. Depression is more of the
Okay.
struggle that you face, and it's a diagnosable mental illness. When is like a synonym for your physical health.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Thank you, Loizza. Now, back to my question. I was asking how you deal with people who have mental illness, and some of the programs that you help them engage themselves in order to regain their.
So for me, my main thing that I do is not necessarily counseling, or I'm not a therapist, or I'm not a psychologist, but the one thing that I um, primarily work through is working with youth to talk about their stories and share their experiences. So for me, when I see somebody struggling, the one thing that I can do to encourage them is to talk about it. So in my community, through my organization, Peace of Mind, I have events for young people where they can talk about their experiences and kind of normalize the feelings that they have. So they understand that they're not alone in whatever they are facing or whatever they're being challenged with. It's something that is okay for them to deal with, and it's something that they can get through. So for me, a good place to start, like I said earlier, is being able to normalize this conversation. It's okay if somebody is not doing well all the time. It's okay if they're not doing good. it's okay. But the most important part is knowing that they know they're able to get back up again and get through what they're going through. And if that extra help is needed, so a professional like a psychologist or a counselor or a therapist, that would be a good time for intervention to talk and say, hey, I think this young person or this person in this, however old they are, this person might need this extra help from a professional. But my main approach that I like doing within the people that I've met is let's normalize this conversation first before we take it a step further.
Doctor asked me. I talked to a doctor about mental health. Sent me very real quick so that in the meantime, if anyone has a question, the person can ask. Hello.
All right. Hi. I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay. Good. Hi, Loizza. My name is Godi, the Ghana YMCA. I'm a youth leader with Accra Central Branch. So there's a lot of overwhelming attention on COVID-19, especially prevention and how to avoid infecting others, But it comes with a lot of mental health pressures. So as advocates, as youth advocates, what do you think the strategy is trying to get the government and stakeholders to pay attention to mental health while everybody's talking about COVID-19? The mental health stresses that come with COVID-19, I mean.
So I think that is a very, very good question, because in all areas of the world, not just where we are, but even here, we aren't acknowledging the effects that COVID-19 has on mental health, and not just right now, but in the long term, right? So we have people who have lost their jobs, we have people who have completely lost their stable income, and even sometimes their households. And how is this affecting their mental health? We even saw in the news last week, there was a doctor from the United States that had died by suicide because of COVID-19 and how it was affecting him. I think it's a very large task to do, unfortunately, but I think there's always a way to start. Get in contact with local people, local government people within your community, and ask them if there's something that we can do to even just start this program or start this conversation surrounding mental health. Because at the end of the day, when this is all done, there is still going to be mental health effects. Even if we're all healthy, we're all still physically healthy, we're all going to be mentally remember that time during COVID-19. I was alone. Some people, even right now, like divorce rates are going up, domestic abuse rates are going up, suicide attempts are going up. Even within like my everyday lives, like I know suicide attempts are going up, as well as self-harm rates are going up within the people that I know. And it's a topic that is not being discussed at all. And you're thinking like, this is just as important as our physical health, yet we're not having these conversations. So again, I would start local, start small. What can you do for your community? Who can you talk to that has that part to play within governance? And how can you involve them in this conversation so that we're able to do more for our other community members? That being said, though, it is not something easy. A lot of the times government don't have the resources to create these programs. But I know YMCA has been super receptive as well with creating mental health as a focal point for all of their work. So I think if even there's a way to get YMCA involved and say, I would like to start something for the YMCA within our community, especially if you're already involved, how can we find that integration within our existing programs? So again, like I would suggest YMCA and the government to start.
All right. So the underlying triggers for the mental health stress is, like you said, the inability to see friends, to visit friends, make income. A lot of projects that are stalling because of the COVID-19. you can start conversations, but then after the conversation, all the triggers that are causing the stress are there. You know, what are some of the activities that you can prescribe for them to take care of their mental health while they are home when all these things are still happening after the conversation?
So something that I've been taught a lot is think about what's your stressors in your life and think about ways that you could positively cope with them. So for everybody, it's different, right? So for some people, they might not like exercising, but for some people, that's something that can bring them some peace of mind. For some people, it is playing an instrument, or for some people, it is hanging out with their family in their homes. For some people, it's talking to their friends on the phone. I think the most important part about conversation is, again, also that after part. So we had this conversation, what's next? What do we do to make sure that they're maintaining that positive mental health? And I think for some people, it's important to know that whatever self-care looks like to you is okay. So for some people, again, like I had this question at YMCA 175, what is self-care? Self-care is whatever it looks like to you. Self-care is whatever makes you happy, whatever brings you to a calming state, whatever makes you feel like you are okay in this moment. And we're taught a lot to focus on the right now, focus on getting through this moment right now and take it day by day. So being able to talk to youth and say, listen, what makes you happy? What makes you feel at home? What makes you feel at peace? And knowing that they have control over these situations where they're able to cope with what they're feeling by doing things that they enjoy and things that make them happy, I think is something that's a really good first step. But again, I would also want you to consult a local professional in the mental health field to talk about what are things, if that's not enough, if the self-care is not enough, what are things that we can provide them with within the community.
Thank you very much, Loizza.
Okay. Thank you, Goli, for your question. I hope Loizza has answered you
Yeah, brilliant.
to your expectation. Please, I'll humbly like to introduce Mr. Dela Delakofi, who happens to be our National Youth President. I don't know. Oh, it seems he just left the meeting. Either way, when he comes, we'll still let him to ask him if he has anything to say. Okay. Mr. Cedric, please, will you have anything to say for us?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Desi, for the floor. And I also want to thank Loizza for her submission. What I picked from what she said, that is so striking. It's about how you, as an individual, you are a resort to your own mental well being. However, I want to make an input that focuses on our immediate environment. The stories that I've heard about people who have taken their own lives, or about people who have gone to the extreme about mental health, are issues that concerns their surrounding. I hear of someone who took a BC exam and upon failing realized that the parents, the friends, the siblings will mock her. And she wrote a letter saying that because of that failure and because of the fear that she'll be stigmatized, she'll be mocked, she took her life. And these examples continue. So, for instance, I just want us to look at ourselves in this group. We have Loizza, we have Tobek, we have Jacoret, Gode, Alfred, Mame, Benjamin Love. If someone in this group, for instance, would take her own life, given that this is a community, what that means is that the person will be thinking about what will God say about this issue, say about this. So when the person comes to the point that he or she will be humiliated, because of the situation that she finds herself or himself, when the person realizes that the people who are immediate to him or her will judge her, will judge him, and that person has no other form of defense. So the call is for us also to have a more or a better approach towards people who are suffering or having challenge with their mental health. We need to be more compassionate. We need to put ourselves in their shoes. And I've heard mental health experts say that we are all at risk. Any day, anytime, any of us in a spark can find him or herself, at the extreme side of mental well-being. So at any given time, we should know that we compose or we are part of the environment for people who are going through this circumstance. So we can also be part of the healing mechanism towards it. Thank you very much for the floor. Desi. Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Thank you very much, Ambassador Semi. I would like to ask a question about what do you think in Africa per se the cause of mental illness would be?
Was that question for me? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Ambassador Semi.
That question is for me. Okay, good.
Yes,
So,
please. Yes, please.
I mean, the cause of mental, well-being or mental health issues, as Goody intimated, has different kind of, triggers. And even though the triggers may differ geographically, but it is all concerning about human behavior or human well-being. So, for instance, it's about your stress level. If, let's say, your stress level reaches a position where it cannot, be contained, then definitely you are falling into, that situation where your mental health is being compromised. Now, what I also know is that our mind exists to protect us. So every time your mind is scanning around the environment to see where the risks are. So anytime there's a risk, your mind gives you an alert. And when it gives you an alert and you find yourself in a position to deal with that risk, then you're able to find yourself in a better mental health situation. But if it gives you the alert and you realize that you're unable to contain the situation, then it means that you have a serious mental health challenge. For instance, if let's say you are walking in the dark, in the middle of a forest, the whole place is quiet, you are lost, and there's a whisper, there's a panic, you are scared. But if let's say some kind of small, bush animal just pass you by, then you are relieved that you're not in danger. But if a monster faces you in that situation, then your mental stress level goes so high. And this applies to different situations. It applies to you failing an exam, you losing a boyfriend, you losing a job. Now, people hear stories about people having mental issues because they've lost, they separated with their lovers. And people think that that is a joke. It is not a joke. If you have committed yourself, for instance, to a 7-year relationship where you have given yourself so much to it, and you suddenly break up, and your mind is not able to give you the short absorb to deal with it, I can tell you that that will put you in a very stressful mental condition. And the examples continue on and on. But the bottom line is your stress level. How are you able to contain or deal with stress? And how are you able to have your mind protect you against the dangers of society? I would like to hear Loizza's response or comments on this issue or this question.
I can't really hear that well. I think the connection cut off for me a bit, or it might be because of. Oh, I think it's good. Sorry, could you just repeat your last sentence? I missed it.
Okay, so the point I was making is that in summary, your mental stress level also contributes to your mental well-being. So if the stress level is so high that you cannot deal with, then of course you have a mental health challenge. But if the stress level is even high and we have the tools to deal with them, If you fail an exam, you lose a boyfriend, you lose a job, or whatever be, if you have the mechanism to deal with it, then that means that you're in a better mental health, situation. And I'm saying that I'd like to hear your thoughts on this question that was sent to me.
Yeah. So for sure, I think a lot of when we're faced with these struggles, we, whether it be a loss of a job, a person in our lives, a relationship, it's important for us to know that we have the mental resilience to get through it. And a lot of us don't have that confidence to believe that we have that mental resilience. And I was in a talk yesterday where I shared that mental resilience for a lot of people does not come naturally. For a lot of people, mental resilience and having that healthy mental health coping mechanism is something that needs practice. It's not something that we're just all naturally born with and good at doing. So the goal is, of course, to have that positive mental health and have that coping mechanism where we're able to further get over these obstacles in a healthy way. Um, but also, for those who aren't able to do that right now, we need to be able to support them. We need to be able to do our part to make sure that they have the support that they need to continuously overcome these obstacles, because these tough things that happen to us are not a one-time thing. We might not just lose our job once. We might not just lose someone we love once. So it's the ability to continuously get back up after falling down over and over again. I think it's really important to stress on the fact that it doesn't matter how many times that you fall down, it's about how many times you get back up. And that's what mental health is. It's getting back up. It's seeing that there's a purpose to get back up and knowing that if this happens again, it is okay and it's going to be okay because you've gone through it before.
All right. So again, I'm worried about the mental health situation at the moment. From your experience and your engagement with a number of stakeholders, what do you think what demography of people are at most risks at the moment for mental health pressure? So that if we have some of them in our circles, we can reach out to them constantly and keep in touch with them.
So for Canada, I'm not too sure about Ghana, but in Canada, it is youth aged, I believe, 13 to 24, or 18 to 24, something along those lines. But it's that middle age. It's the before adulthood and during the end of like youthhood, I guess you could say. And which makes sense because of the transition into a job or graduating post-secondary education or whatever it may be. That's for us the most vulnerable population, but also men. A lot of the suicides and a large majority of the suicides are men across the world and not just in Canada. And again, that has to do with the stigma surrounding mental health and how men feel like they have to be strong, they have to be okay, they have to physically and mentally be able to keep up with the obstacles that life keeps throwing at them. My friend who died by suicide was also a man. He was also a guy. And he had just turned 18, so he fits within that category of 13 to 24-year-olds. And I think it's important to really start with a youth and engage them in this conversation so that they can pass down their knowledge when they get older.
I would like to also provide an input. Now, Goody, I'd like to provide an input to the same question that you asked. I have realized that young people face more challenge or are more susceptible to mental health challenge than adults, because if you listen to Loizza, you realize that as you develop, your mind grows, and as you learn how to deal with more stressful issues, then become you are more better placed in terms of your mental health well-being. But the reason why young people, are more at play is that young people find different means to deal with mental health issues, and these different means puts them in more difficult situation. For instance, young person trying to rest, his or her mind on a difficult situation may tend to taking drugs. A young person trying to accommodate a loss may tend to listen to the friend who may prescribe an antidote that may not be welcoming. So young people do not have the shock absorbers to deal with mental issues as compared to adults who might have encountered similar challenge in the past and therefore know how to pass through that or navigate through that difficulty.
I guess just to add on to that as well, it's a super good point. It's important to note that just because someone is getting through something does not mean that they're getting through it healthily. It does not mean that just because they're getting through it, but yes, it might be through the means of drugs or means through other unhealthy addictions, that they're managing to get through and just get by with whatever they're struggling with. So again, that promotion surrounding healthy choices to overcome obstacles and healthy choices to build that mental resilience and healthy choices to have that positive mental health is something that is super important to have within these conversations, but also to integrate within young people and let them know, and while they're being educated on this topic, there are healthy ways to get through a difficult time.
Okay, thank you, Louisa. I don't know. There are a lot of young people here who, I don't know, they don't want to talk or ask questions. Either way, most of them may have suffered from mental health, but they are all here just listening. Okay, I would want to ask for the young people, since they are not asking that, how can we prevent, like as we are growing, how can we prevent mental illness? Louisa.
So I might be the wrong person to ask for this, but to my understanding, there's mental illness that can be passed down and be hereditary, and it can be something that someone may be diagnosed with depression because the mother had depression, or they would have schizophrenia, so there's a chance they might have it as well. But in terms of preventing negative outcomes from a negative mental health, that I can for sure is being proactive to take care of your mental health. So whether that is professionally before it's something that it's beyond you to handle, being able to start this conversation, being able to positively speak about things that are troubling to you, I think is the first part to not necessarily getting yourself to be 100% immune from mental illness, because there's no such thing. But it's a good step to taking care of your mental health and being positive. So if you do one day become diagnosed with mental illness, you have that mindset where you know it's going to be okay, you know you can get through this, and that's the most important part. Having a mental illness doesn't mean it's the end of the world, and it's not something that makes you any less of a human or even less important, but it's something that is, and something that can be difficult and can be challenging for some people. So I wouldn't necessarily say to prevent getting a mental illness, but I would say in order to prevent negative coping mechanisms on your mental health, it would be important to take these proactive measures to know that you have healthy coping mechanisms, to know you have a good support system, to know there's some resources in your community that you can reach out to, I would say is the most important part.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great submission. And I'd like to bring some sort of awareness to the discussion. In Ghana, when we think of mental health or mental illness, mostly we want to see people on the streets who are like in plain words mad, who are insane, who have dressed, differently, to convince us that truly this is a state of mental illness. But that is not what it is. Mental health issues or mental illness speaks basically to the phenomena where you tend to act, you tend to operate in a manner that you will not do rationally if all things were equal. So if all things were equal, there should be a way that you should behave in addressing a situation that comes before you. So if you are unable to tackle that issue in that manner, then clearly it's a mental health or mental well-being issue. And the point she made is very clear that the resource to know how to deal with this situation, to have the tools for mental well-being or mental health issues, to know who to speak to know how to be able to approach issues is a source of great relief for a lot of people when you are faced with a challenge. Because look, if I know that I can speak to Loizza anytime I have a serious issue, that in itself is a mental health relief to me. Because anytime I have an issue, all I do is to call Loizza. Okay? For instance, let me give you a typical example. Now, when I completed college, I used to have a girlfriend. And anytime I have an issue with my girlfriend, there was another colleague of mine who I'll say is more experienced in dating stuff, who I'll call to talk to. So when my mind is getting off, and I call this guy and say, "Oh, Jack, relax, relax. This is a simple issue. Call her, take her to a date, tell her this, calm things down." And it happens like magic. And, we just resolve the issue. So like she said, to know who to talk to know which tools to use, which platform to access is a great relief and a great, healing instrument in dealing with mental health challenge.
Yeah, great point, Cedric. And just to top up, I think that what you're just saying is that it's important that we take care of each other when we're in a society, when we're in the circle. It's very important. And working with like a mental health institute, I realized that there is a gap between when they are discharged from a mental health hospital, when somebody gets sick, mentally ill, and when they are sent back home. And that is what my organization is trying to work on. And that is the responsibility I think that all of us can try and do. When somebody goes to the mental health hospital and comes back, that is when, even though they've been discharged, they're probably the most vulnerable. So that is when we all need to be supportive, be kind to them, treat them like they haven't been anywhere, because that is what they're expecting. There's a story of one of our coaches, Nashiru, which he shared that when he came back from the psychiatric ward, one of the most important moments for him was when one of the wardens gave him a knife to help cut meat in the kitchen, because for a long time nobody trusted him with sharp objects or anything that can be used to cause harm. So that simple action is what made him feel that I'm whole again, society trusts me. And so generally what I think we can also do is that, even not for people who have been in hospital, but generally what we can do to help is to be kind to one another, because you don't know what somebody is going through. And mental health illness, when somebody is mentally ill, all they need is a very, very small trigger to trigger them, and then they might do something irrational. So what we can take from this as young people everywhere is always trying to be calm, because people who are mentally ill, they are not thinking rationally. And if they do anything, it will just be an escape for them. And we might have caused somebody a loved one. So let's all be kind, because you never know what someone is going through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Godi. I can see the regional president here would like to employ his thoughts or advice or any suggestion to mental health and how we can do away with the mental illness. Honorable, you have the floor.
Desmond, peace be with you all. Most grateful to you guys for such a great platform. Greetings to everybody. Keenly, what I would say is that verifying or determine who is under the condition of a mental challenge, it's a very cumbersome one. So generally, I would advise that as human beings, being gregarious animals, let's try as much as we can to be accommodating to each other, because it's going to be difficult for you to determine that this one is suffering from a mental health issue. So in other sense, since we cannot be able to determine or be able to know without a medical proof, why don't we become accommodating to the people who come to and fro of our life? Because as young people who find ourselves under the YMCA, one of our cardinal principles that all may be one. So how can we be one when we don't eschew unity, the sense of belonging, and the sense of thoughtfulness? So I think that is what I can say for now.
Okay, thank you very much, when because we don't want to do away with the young people's bundle. They complain about their bundle a lot. So right now we'll try and then schedule another meeting and then see how best we can talk more about mental health and then how we can help each other develop a better psychological resilience. I'd like to take our last
Why not, madam?
speech from Loizza, if she has anything to say, any advice, or and then she can. Loizza, you have the floor.
Thank you. I want to start off, of course, by saying thank you for having me. I love getting involved with YMCA, especially anywhere that's not Canada, because I've talked to a lot of places in Canada already. I think it's important to get perspectives from other countries and other places in the world. So thank you for the opportunity to learn about where you're from as well. Most importantly, I do, as a last message, want to say that I hope you are all doing well, staying safe, staying home, taking care of yourselves both mentally and physically. I know it's a tough time for everybody across the world. And thank you for making mental health another focal point for your discussions. It's something that is important and very much needed in all areas of the world. Suicide, again, is something that we never think is going to happen to ourselves or anybody we know or somebody we love, but nobody is immune to mental health struggle, whether it be an actual mental illness or whether it be suicide or just being stressed out from day-to-day lives or whatever COVID-19 brings upon us. It is something that we struggle with, and there is no better time to create a community than right now. So thank you so much for having me. I hope that you took something, even if it was small, away from this conversation. I hope to see you all soon at some point or talking again.
Thank you very much, Loizza. We hope to have you once again. Okay. Ambassador Cedric, please, will you have any advice for us as well?
Thank you very much. The words of Loizza will suffice, but for giving me the floor, let me say that we of the YMCA tradition have three core, pillars that we base our triangle: the mind, the body, and the spirit. And so today we are discussing the mind, mental health. I want us to appreciate that these issues is not beyond us. These issues is not only reserved for experts to discuss. All of us here are operating with a motto, and that motto is calibrating, in our mind. That is what we are discussing. And given that you have a mind, Loizza has made a point that each one of us at any given time is susceptible to losing it. And think of this: how many times have you not lost your thoughts when you want to say something so badly? When you want to tell your friend something so serious and you've just forgotten about it? How many times have you not, just missed an idea when you seriously need it? The smallest unit of what you are talking about, but it also brings you so close that mental health issues is a challenge and that it can be escalated from that small unit. So I love this discussion. I've picked a lot of, submission, a lot of revelations from that of Loizza, what Godi has shared, and of course, any other person who has spoken here. And I'm going to apply most of it to my own daily lives. And I also want to thank you for joining this conversation. Do not forget that we are still in the COVID-19 pandemic period. I see people touching their mouth, touching their nose, touching their eyes. It is rather unfortunate because this video is being recorded. And when people watch this video after this and think of us as YMCA change agent, having this beautiful conversation, but touching our mouth and nose and eyes, that will be a little bit disappointing. So please, let us not forget the social protocols. during this time. Stay safe, and we look forward to see you all physically in a few months. Thank you, and thank you, Asap Desi, for hosting this meeting. You are proving a young guy of great leadership promise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Seki. Well, now we are done. I would like to thank everybody for joining this meeting. And before that, I would like Godi to tell us more about the YMCA, because I can see that most of my friends who are not YMCA members have joined the conversation and the discussion. I would like Godi to just tell us a bit more just about what the YMCA is really about before we end the discussion.
All right, so I'll be very quick about it. So basically, the YMCA is a youth-focused organization. It was founded in 1844. The Ghana movement started much later, about 40 years later. And basically, what we do is to empower young people. And our focus here is to empower young people for the African Renaissance. We are not just a project-based organization, we're a membership-based organization, which means that you can join and become a member of the YMCA. Being a member of the YMCA, you can talk to Desmond. We are an organization of service. You should feel the need to serve your community. And once you feel the need to serve, YMCA has a number of educative programs that touch either on the body, the soul, or the mind, and that can help build the capacity of young people in your community. So that is what the YMCA is about, a collection of young people and people who are young at heart all over the world working together to create a reality.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, once again, I would like to appreciate our brother Torben, Ambassador Cedric, Della, and Loizza again for having time for us and then joining our discussion. We hope to see you once again. Thank you very much. Now we can close our eyes and then take the closing prayer and then.
I see Odino has his hand raised.
Hey, our honorable. Hey, sorry. Our regional president, Nano Odino. Thank you very much for having time.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, as part of the participants, I can see my regional vice president, Mr. Robert Nati. Let me say a shout out to him that I'm grateful to join for this discussion. So shout out to him. The other issue is that I want to find out from Ambassador Cedric. Being in my closet, neatly barbed, and finding some material, foreign material falling in my eyes, am I prevented as a matter of WHO protocol not to take it off my eyes? That is just by the way. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, bye everyone.
Since AJ is raising his hands.
AJ, tell AJ no debate, no jingo is here.
AJ, your microphone.
Yeah, is it okay now?
Yes, okay, it's okay.
Yeah, I didn't really raise my hand, bro. I just wanted to say something to what our honorable president said, but since he said no, I just accord him and give him that. I yield to that, and I wouldn't say anything for now. So we all have a good night.
Okay, that's it to you.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.